Hi and welcome to this course Modern Python 101 Workouts. If you are a beginner or if you want to practice your basic Python programming skills, then this course is for you. And if you have taken any of my earlier courses, then you know that my content is pretty dense and it is packed with a lot of information. For this course, I have carefully selected 20 workouts, and these 20 workouts are going to cover all of the basic aspects of Python. And as a bonus, I have also taken a couple of questions from HackerRank. So there are three main sections in this workouts. One section is for your warm-up, so it has a couple of questions. This will help you to get started with these workouts. The next one is the main workouts. So as you can see, we have a lot of workouts. And the last section is for the HackerRank problems. Each of the problem comes with its own problem statement. So if you click on any of the workouts, you can see I have a nice documentation on top and you are expected to solve this problem. In case if you are not able to solve this problem, then obviously I have a video in which I cover the solution line by line and word by word. I have also placed all of my solutions right at the bottom. So let me just collapse all of this. There is a folder called as solutions, and inside of this I have placed all of my solutions. Whenever you are in a doubt, you can always click on this and you can always check out the solution. So I hope all of this sounds interesting to you and I hope to catch you inside the course. Welcome, and I am so excited to see you inside this course. And before you could start with the workouts, I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about how to approach these workouts, because I have commonly seen that students are initially very excited, but when the problems become a little tough, they tend to quit very easily. And I want you to succeed. I don't want you to give up midway. So let's see how you should approach these workouts. The first thing that I want you to understand that this course is exactly opposite of my earlier course, Modern Python 101. In this course, I am first going to throw a problem at you and I expect you to solve it, and I have intentionally made the problem a little bit challenging for you. I expect you to go online and search for the solutions. Maybe you can go to the official Python documentation, or you can search on Stack Overflow or just Google for the solutions. The basic point is I want you to think a bit, I want you to read a bit before you can solve the problem. And remember, for these workouts, it is your job to solve the problem and it's my job to make it as difficult as possible. Solving the program is just a small thing. What really matters is, can you persist throughout the course? And if you can persist, then you will surely come out as a winner and you would know much more Python than you started with the course. While you are trying to solve all of the workouts, I have a little bit more advice for you. I would not advise you to spend more than 45 to 60 minutes on one problem. If you are able to get it partially right, then it could make some more sense for you to spend a little bit more time on the problem. But if you're spending much more time on that, then I would advise you to check out the video or the solution for it and then try to write the solution on your own. Also, I want you to remember that my solutions are not the only solutions. There are multiple ways in which you can approach and solve the problem. And as long as you are able to get the right outcome, everything is fine. The next thing before starting with the workouts is I would like you to go to GitHub and download all of the files. You can go to this link, github.com/octallium/modernpython101 workouts, and you can download all of the code from here. Well, that was my small piece of advice, and let's get started with the workouts. Let us start with our warm-ups. I want you to go to this file 01hello.py and let's see what we are supposed to do over here. So let me collapse my sidebar. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to prompt user to enter name, and I want you to print a greeting message. So this is a sample input. A user can enter a name, and when the user enters a name, we want this kind of an output, hello followed by the name. So let's start with this one. So I can create a variable called as name and I can take the user input. If you want, you can display a prompt message, or if you don't want, it's all up to you. For the sake of this one, let me print a prompt message. So I can say, please enter your name. And after we have the input for name, I simply want to print out a greeting message starting with hello followed by the name. So let me just save it and let's try to run this file. So it's giving me a prompt, please enter your name. So I say my name is Octallium, and here we have the output of hello Octallium. Let us see the next warm-up. So I want you to go to this file and let me collapse my sidebar. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to prompt the user to enter the name, and after we have the name, I simply want you to print out its length. For example, if we have a sample input of Octallium, then I would like you to print out a message saying that Octallium is 9 characters long. So let's see how we can do this. Let me go a little up. We can first take the input saying the name is equal to input. Again, if you want, you can have a prompt message. If you don't want, you can simply skip it. Just for the sake of this video, let me put a prompt message. So I can say, please enter your name. And on the next line, we can simply print out a message. We can use our formatted string, and let me use my curlies. So I can say name, and we can say is. To get the length, we can say I want to know the length of my name, and then we can say characters long. That's it. Let us save and let us run this file. So it's saying that please enter your name. So my name is Octallium, and we have the output Octallium is 9 characters long. Let us have a look at the last warm-up, and it's right over here. So please remember, these warm-ups are just to give you a small feel, and when you start with the main section of workouts, that's the time where you will start getting some more challenging problems. But for now, let us have a look at this warm-up. So let me collapse my sidebar, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to prompt the user to enter 2 integers, and I want you to print its sum. So this is a sample input. For the first input, I want you to accept 1 integer. On the second input, I want you to accept the next integer. And once we have the output, I want you to print out the sum of it. Let's see how to do this. Let me go a little up. You can choose to use functions or not, it's up to you. But I would highly encourage you to create and use functions. So for this example, I'm going to create a function, and let's see how to work with it. So let me create a function called as add numbers. It accepts 2 numbers. So this is my number 1. The type of it is an integer. We require 1 more number, so this becomes my number 2. It is also an integer, and I want this function to also return an integer. Let me add some documentation saying that this function adds and returns the sum of 2 numbers. Now let's write the return statement, and it's pretty easy. We simply have to return our number 1 plus our number 2. Now let us go down and let us accept the inputs from our user. So right over here, I can say my number 1 could be my input, and here I can say please enter a number. Now it's up to you if you want to display some prompt message or not, but it's not required. And let me copy and paste. This has to be my number 2. And here let me say please enter another number. And at the last, I can simply say I want to print the output of my function, add my numbers. The first one is number 1, and the next one was my number 2. Now let me save it. But this program has some bugs, and this is not going to work as desired. Let me tell you why. If you go to this method of input, you can see the return is a type of a string. But what we want an integer. We don't want to add 2 strings, we want to add 2 integers. So we need to use a cast, and we need to convert this input from a string to an integer. Let's see how to do that. So I want to wrap my entire input inside my cast of an integer. Let us do the same thing for the next input. So I can say this one also I want to convert the string to my integer. Now save the file. Now this time our program will work as desired. So let us try and run this file. So it's asking me for a number. Let me give 4, another number, maybe 3, and we have the output of 7. Now let's start with the actual workouts. So I wanted to go in this folder and start with the first workout right over here. So let me collapse my sidebar, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to mirror a string. So for a given input of S, which is a string, I simply want you to print out its mirror image. So for example, if you go a little down, if the sample input is Chico, then this should be your output. It's exactly the mirror of Chico, O, K, I, H and C. And for your convenience, I have created a function right over here called as mirror. If you want, you can use this function or you can create your own. It's all up to you. Give it a try on your own, or else we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it right now. So this toMirror is a string. Now remember that strings are iterables. You can iterate over a string. So first let me write the body of the function and then I will explain what's exactly happening. So let me take out all of these things. Let me create a variable called as values. The first thing that I want to do is I want to convert the string to a list, because reversing a list is very easy. So let's see how to do that. To convert the string to a list, we can simply use a cast. So I can say I want to create a list of my variable which is called as toMirror. Now if you hover over values, this is actually a list of our strings. Now we simply have to reverse it. So we can say values.reverse. Now we simply have to return it. So let's go to the next line, and here we can say return. But here is one small problem. Values is a list and we want the output as a string. So we need to create a string out of our list, and we can do that very easily by using join. So let me show you how it is to be done. So this is an empty string and I want to join my list of values. So let me save it. Now let us accept the user input. So let me create a variable called as toMirror and let me prompt the user. I can say what do you want to mirror, and let us print out the output. So we can say I want to print the output of my function of mirror, and we simply need to pass the variable toMirror to it. That's it. Just save the file and let us try running this file. So it's asking me for an input. Let me say Chico and we have the output. Let us try one more time. So let me say ABC and we have the output of CBA. If you are still confused, let me show in my IPython shell what's exactly happening. So let me go to my terminal, and this is my IPython shell. You can also use your Python shell. Let me show how to use your Python shell. Let me exit from my IPython. You can simply type Python and enter. This will take you to your Python shell. But IPython is a much better shell, so that's why I'm going to use IPython. Let me exit. If you don't have IPython, you can simply install it by typing pip install IPython. So let us go inside the IPython shell. I can simply type IPython and we are now inside our IPython shell. Let me clear up my terminal. Now let us go back to the code. The first thing that we are doing is we are simply converting the string to a list. Let's see that in action. So our variable was toMirror and the value that we passed was Chico. Now let us create another variable called as values is equal to list of my variable called as toMirror. Now let's see what's happening. Let us print out value, and you can see our string has been converted into a list. That's what we want. Now we simply have to reverse the list, and that we are doing by using an inbuilt function on the list which is called as reverse. So we can simply say value dot reverse. Let us print out value one more time, and you can see our list has been reversed. Now the last step is we simply want to join the list and we want to return. For joining, we use another inbuilt method. So let me show you that as well. So let us say value this time is my join, and I want to join my value. Let us print out value, and here we have it. We have successfully reversed our list, and this is what we have been doing inside this function. But we can do much better. I don't want all of this. We can have a single line solution. And let us go to the next line. Here I can simply say I want to return to mirror, and then I can simply slice it right over here. So I can use my syntax colon colon -1. Let me try to run this, and then I will explain what's happening. Let us go back to our terminal, and it is asking me for an input. Let me again write Chico, and we have the right output. So let's see what's happening in this solution. As I explained before, strings are iterables, so we can create slices of strings. Let us go back to our IPython shell and see what's happening. Let me clear all of this. And this was our variable called as toMirror, and we have assigned the value of Chico to it. Now since strings are iterables, we can slice them. So what happens if I just say toMirror, and if I just put a single quote and close the bracket, let's see what's happening. We get the entire string back. Now let's see if we use the same syntax, but if we use two colons, we again get the same syntax. So what this colon stands for, the value before the colon means the starting index, and the value after the colon means the ending index. Now suppose if I just say I want to start at 0 and I want to end at 2, let me take out the next colon. Now let us see the output. So you can see on the 0th index we have C, the next alphabet is H, and this slicing is going to stop just before our second index. That's why we have the output of C and H. We can use the same logic to reverse our string. Now what we have to do is, instead of going from left to the right, we simply have to go from the right to the left. So let's see how we can do that. So I simply want to say to mirror. Since I want to say that I want to start from a 0th index, I can actually skip writing 0. So I can just put a quote. Now I want to go all the way to the end, so I don't need to write the second argument as well. But since we want to go from the right to the left, we need to tell that we want to reverse by putting -1. And that's it. Let me enter. Oh, I forgot my closing bracket. Let me close the bracket, and we have the string in a reverse format. And that's what we are doing right over here. So we are simply creating a slice in a reverse order, and we are returning the string. The next problem is about converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. So this is the workout number 2, and this is what I want you to do. For a given input in Celsius as a float value, I want you to convert the temperature into Fahrenheit, and I want you to print out its value. So for example, this could be my sample input. Suppose the temperature is 0 degrees Celsius. My answer should be 32 degrees. And we have a couple of constraints. The least minimum value for a Celsius is -273.15. So you can be sure whenever you are testing, you don't have to give any value which is less than 273.15. Give it a try on your own. If not, we can do it together. So let's see how to do this one. So let me go down and let me collapse my sidebar. For reference, I have created a sample definition. If you want, you can use this definition, or you can write your own logic. It all depends on you. The formula to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius is a very simple one. So let me first write the formula. So here I can say that my Fahrenheit value would be my formula, and the formula goes like this: Celsius multiplied by 9 divided by 5 plus of 32, and we simply have to return our Fahrenheit value. On the next line, let us accept one input. So we can say input, and we can say enter temperature in Celsius, and we also need to convert all of this into a float, because remember input always gives a string and we want a float. So I'm using a cast to convert my string to a float. And last, we simply have to print out the output of our function. Our function is 2 Fahrenheit, and let us pass the temperature to it. That's it. So let us save and let us run our file. So it's asking me for my temperature. Suppose my temperature is 0 degrees in Celsius, and here we have the output. It's 32 degrees in Fahrenheit. The next workout is all about counting words, and this is what I want you to do. For input of string S, I want you to count and print the number of words. So for example, this is my sample input. The sky is blue, and my output should be 4 because I exactly have 4 words. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Give it a try on your own, or as usual we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. Let me collapse my sidebar, and here let me just add some documentations, and let's see how to do it. So on the next line I don't require pass, so let me take it out. The first thing that we want to do is we want to simply split the sentence. So let's see how to do that. So I can create a new variable called as words, and we can split the sentence by using an inbuilt function which is obviously called as split. Now since sentence is of the type of a string, we can simply split it. The next line we can simply create a new variable called as count, and we can simply take the length of our list of words. If you hover over split, you can see that the output is of the list of strings. And since we have a list of strings, on the next line we can use the inbuilt function of length, and the length of our list would be equal to the number of words in the sentence. The last thing to do is simply we want to return the count. Here I am creating multiple variables just for your reference, but you can do all of these things in a single line. You can simply say I want to return the length, and inside this let us split the sentence, and let me comment all of this out. So this is also a valid code, or you may have some other custom logic. It's all up to you. Let me go back to my simple logic. So let me delete this. On the next line, let us accept the input. We can say input, enter a sentence, and let us print out the count by using our function. So count words, and let us pass our sentence. That's it. Let us save our file and let us try to run the file. So it's asking me enter a sentence. The sky is blue, and we have the answer of 4. Let us go to the next workout, and this workout is called as wordly. So what I want you to do is, for an input of a string of S, I want you to add ly, that means L and Y, to the back of the string, and I want you to print out the new word. For example, let's see what's happening. If my input is Octobot, then my output should be Octobotly. Give it a try on your own, otherwise we will do it together. I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it now. Let me open up my IPython, and there first let us see the logic, and then we will go back and create the function. Let me enter my IPython shell. Now Python actually knows how to add two strings. So if I say a of b plus c and d, and we have the output of a, b, c, d. So similarly, if I say Octobot plus of ly, we get the output of Octobotly. So let's use the same logic inside our function. Let me put up some documentation over here. Let me collapse my sidebar and let me get my spacing right. And we don't need this. Let us create a new variable called as new word, and we can assign the value of our word plus of ly. Then we simply need to return the new word. There is one more very simple way of doing this. we can use our string interpolation. We can say that I want to return, and I can use my string interpolation. Let me use my curly brackets, and I can say my word followed by ly. So this single line logic is also good enough. We can comment all of this out and we can still have the right output. Let me go back to my old logic just for the sake of simplicity. So let me comment this one out. Let us go down and let us accept an input from the user. So we can say word is equal to my input, enter any word, and then we can say I simply want to print out the output of my function wordly, and let us pass the word to it. Let us save this file and let us try to run this one. So it's asking me for any word. Let me say Octobot, and here we have the output of Octobotly. Let us have a look at the next workout, and this workout is called as Zortly. In the last workout we added Lee at the back of the word. Now let's see what I want you to do. This time I want you to replace the first alphabet with Z, and also at the same time I want you to add ly to the back of the string. Let me collapse my sidebar. So for example, this is an sample input called as Octallium. Then I want you to replace O with Z, and I want you to add ly at the back. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. So to use a function or not is absolutely your choice. Let me define a function for my sake of convenience, and I can call it as Zortly. This will accept an argument which is of the type of a string, and this will also return a string. Now let us see how we can implement the logic. But first let me show you in my IPython shell, and then we will come back to this function. Suppose you have a word which is Octallium. Now if you try to replace the first index, so I can say I want to replace my first index at 0 with Z. Let's see what happens. We get an error, and this is because strings are immutable data types. You can index them, but you can't replace the values inside of a list. So what we need to do is we need to create a separate string altogether, and let's see how we can do that. The next data that we want is all of this string except the first value. We can do this by using our indexing. So we can say from my string of words, I want to start from my index number 1, and let me go back to the end, and we can get our desired data. The only thing left to do is we want to add a capital Z at the start and ly at the back. So we can mix all of these things together, and we can say I want to have a Z at the start, plus I want to add my word from my index number 1 all the way to the back, plus I want to add ly at the back, and we have the right answer. So let me copy this logic and let me paste this logic inside my function. So here I can say that my new word would be equal to our logic, and next we simply want to return our new word. I am using a variable just for the sake of convenience. You can do this in a single line. You can say return followed by this. This is also going to work just fine, but right now let me take it out. Next, let us ask the user for an input. So I can say my word is equal to my input, and let us prompt saying that enter any word, and then I simply want to print out the output of my function Zortly, and let me pass my word into it, and that's it. Let us save and let us try to run this file. So it's asking me enter any word, so I say Octallium, and we have the right output. Welcome to a new workout, and let us see what we are supposed to do in this workout. This workout is all about adding two lists together. So what I want you to do is, for a given input of two lists of equal length, I want you to add the elements of both of the lists together. So for example, if we have two lists like this right over here, then the output should be this one. The first element is 5 and that is 1 plus 4. The next is 2 plus 5, so we have a 7 right over here. The next is 3 plus 6, that is 9 right over here, and so on. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it right now. The first thing is, let me declare the types for this one. Since both of these parameters have to be list, so I can say that this is going to be my list of my integers. The same thing for this one as well. This is also going to be my list of integers, and I want this function to also return back my list of integers. Now let us see how we can define the body of this function. Let us create one more list inside the body, so we can name the variable as our numbers. This too is going to be a list of our integers, and let us assign a blank value to it. Next, we simply have to get the first elements from both of our lists. So what we can do is we can use our for loop along with the range, and for each iteration we simply have to get the first elements and we have to add them together and we have to append them inside our newly created list. So let us see how we can do that. So here I can say that for I in my range, for my length of my list of nums1, you can choose nums2. It doesn't matter because both of them are supposed to be of the same length. Next, for each iteration we simply have to add the first elements together and we have to append them. So here I can say that I want to get the first elements from my nums1, and we can get that with our I plus our nums of 2, again the first element, so we can say I right over here, and at the last we simply have to return our nums, and that's it. Let us go down and let us accept the input from the user. Here I can say that my input number 1 would be my input, and let us prompt for a message, enter the first list. Let me copy this, and here I can say that enter the second list. This has to be input number 2. Now what's going to happen is this input is going to return back a string, but what we want a list of integers. So we would need to convert this input 1 from a string to a list of integers. So for example, this one 1 2 3 4 5, this would be actually a string. Now let us see how we can convert this string to a list of integers. Let me open up my IPython shell. So suppose the kind of input we get would be something like this. So this is the return string from our input statement. Now we want to convert this string to a list of integers. The first thing is, let us try to divide this string into a list of strings itself. We can do that simply by using the inbuilt function called as split. And here you can see that we get a list back, but the data types are of the type of strings. We need to convert each of the data type from string to an integer. Well, you can use your for loops to do it, but we can do much better. We can use another inbuilt function which is called as map. So let me first type and then I will try and explain what's going to happen. Now we can see that this function of map is actually returning back a map. You can imagine this function to be a kind of generator. Now what this map function does is, for each iteration it is going to apply the cast of int to all of the members inside the list. So for the first iteration it will happen something like this, int of 1, so we get an integer 1 back. So if you watch closely, the input is a string but the return value is 1. For the next iteration it would be something like this, so int of 2, then we get the integer 2 back, and lastly again this should be for 3 and we get the 3 back. But what we are trying to do is, we are trying to do all of these things in a single statement by using our map function. The last thing to do is we simply have to collect this map inside a list. So what we can say that I want to create a list from our map, and that's it. We have the desired list with all of the elements as integers. So let us go back and let us try to use this syntax. So let me go a little down. Here I can say that my variable of n would be my list from map, and I want to map my integers to my input. And remember, we have to split this so that we get a list of our strings back. Let me copy this and let us do it for input number 2 as well. So let me change the name and this becomes my input of 2. And finally, let us just print out the output of our function add of list, and let me pass the variables to it. Let me save the file and let me try to run this file. So it is asking me for my first list, so I can say 1 2 3 4 and 5. The next one can be 4 5 6 7 and 8, and here you can see that we get the right output. 1 plus 4 we get a 5. The next is 2 plus 5, so we get a 7. The next is 3 plus 6, so we get a 9, and so on. Welcome to a new workout. Let us see what we are supposed to do in this workout. So for a given input of a string s, I want you to reverse the first two and the last two characters. And there is one constraint. Remember that your string should always be greater than or equal to 4. Let us have a look at the sample input and the sample output. Suppose crystal is your input, then I want you to reverse the first two characters. So you can see over here R and C are reversed, and so are the last two characters. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us try and do it together. Let me open up my IPython shell and let us see over there how we can solve this problem. Suppose we have a word and the word is crystal. Now what we can do is we can divide the problem in 3 steps. The first step would be to get the first two alphabets and reverse them. The second step would be to get the last two alphabets and reverse them. And the third step would be to simply get the middle section. So let us see how we can do all of these things. First, let me create a variable called as first two, and we can get the first two alphabets by using our string indexing. So here I can say that from my string of word, I want to start from the 0th index, so I don't need to write anything over here, and I want to go up to my second index, so I can write 2 over here, and that's it. So if we try and print out first two, we get the output as C and R. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to reverse this, and we know that if we have a list, then reversing it is very easy. So what we can do is we can simply convert this string into a list of strings. So what we can do is, so we can say that my first two would be my list of my first two. Let us print out first two now, and here you can see that we have a list. The next thing is we have to reverse it, so we can say that first two dot reverse. Now let us try and print out first two. I want first two, and here you can see that we have reversed the alphabets. Now the last thing would be we simply have to join them back. So we can simply say that I just want to join my list of first two, and that's it. We have the right output. We can repeat the same steps for the last two alphabets as well. Let me clear up my terminal. So again, coming back, this is our word. Now we can get the last two alphabets by using the same method. So here I can say that my variable of last two would be from my string of word. Now this time we want to start from an index which is 2 indexes less than the length. So what we can write over here is, first we can get the length of our word, and I want to minus 2 places from that. So that means we want to start at A, and from A we want to go all the way back. So here I can just write a colon and a bracket, and that's it. So we have the output of last two. So this is A and L. Now what we can do is we can combine this syntax and we can convert it into a list in one step itself. So what I can do is, let me just go right up. I can wrap all of these things inside my list. So let me wrap all of these things. So I can just write list over here. Now if you see the output of last two, here you can see that we have a list. The next thing is we need to reverse it. So we want to reverse it, and the last thing to do is we simply want to join our last two. So join last two, and here we have the output of L and A. Now the last part of the puzzle is we simply have to get the middle portion. So let me clear up everything, and again this is our word. Now what we can do is we can create a new variable called as middle, and again from our string of word, this time we want to start from index number 2. So we want to start at Y, so that's why we have index number 2 over here, and this time we want to go all the way back but 2 places before the length. So here we can simply write that I want to go up to my length of my word minus 2 places. Now if we check middle, we get the right output Y, S and T. The last thing is we simply have to join our first two, the middle portion and the last two, and that's it. So let us go back to our program and let us see how we can do all of these things. So here first let me write my type. So this is going to be a string, and my function is also going to return back a string. Here what I can say is I can say my variable of first two would be my list, and I want to create a list from my variable of word. I want to start from the 0th index, and I want the first two characters. The next thing is I simply want to reverse. The next would be to get the last two. So I can say last two would be again my list, and again from my variable of word, this time I want to start from my length of word minus of 2, then all the way back. Next we also have to reverse it, so let us reverse it. The last part would be the middle section, so we can say my middle part would be again my word. Then I want to start from the second, and I want to go till my length of my word minus of 2 places. The last thing is we simply have to join all of these things together. So I can say that my new word would be, let us join the first two right over here, plus we want the middle section, plus we want to join our last two, and the last thing to do is we simply have to return back our new word. Let us go down and let us take the input from the user. So here I can say that my word is equal to input, and here we can prompt saying that enter any word, and next we simply have to print out the output of our function, and let us pass the word to it, and that's it. Let me save the file and let me try to run the file. So it is asking me for a word, so I can say that my word is crystal, and here you can see that we have the right output. The first two alphabets are in the reverse order, and also the last two alphabets. Let us go back. If we go to the section of solutions, I have a couple of more solutions. So here it is. Let me collapse my sidebar. Let us see a couple of other solutions as well. So let me scroll down. So this is just an additional piece of code just to be sure that my length is more than 4 or not. But if you want, you can skip this. It is just an extra step for validation, and that's it. Let us go to one more alternative solution, and let me take out the comment and let us have a look. So if we have a look at this line number 56, what I'm doing is I'm simply taking the first and last alphabet, and on the next line, that is on line number 57, I'm simply taking my second last element and my last element. And when I have to create the string, I'm simply reversing the order. My B comes first, A comes after this, and similarly at the back, my D comes first and my C comes after this. Let me show you this action inside my IPython shell. Let me copy this and let us go back to our IPython. Let me paste it. Let us print out the value of A. So A is C, my B would be my R. Let us go back and copy the next line as well. And let me go over here. Let us paste it. Let us see the value of C. C is A, and if you remember, the word was crystal, and for C the index number is -2. So A is at index number -2. Let us see the value of D. The value of D is the last element, that is we have L as the value of D. Let us go back to the function. So the last thing to do was we simply have to add all of these values. This is the middle section. You already know how to get the middle section. I am simply adding the rest of the elements and we simply have to return the word. So this was one alternative method. Let me comment this out and let me show you the last alternative that I have. Let me uncomment this one. So this is a single line solution. Let us go back to our IPython and let me try to show what's happening. So this solution also has three parts. This is the first two, this is the middle section, and this is the last two. Let me copy and paste what's happening right here. Let us go back to our IPython. Let me clear all of this. So this is our word, and let me paste the code right over here. Let us take out the last portion first and let us print this output. Here we have the first two elements. The next thing what I'm doing is I am simply taking these two elements and I'm creating a slice but in the reverse order, and I can do all of these things on a single line. So let's see that in action. So at the back I can say start at the first index, go all the way to the back, but I want you to go in the reverse order. So I say -1 and that's it. We have the elements in a reverse order. I am doing the same thing for the last two elements as well. So let me copy this part and paste it right over here. And you can see we have the solution, which is L and A, which is the reverse of A and L, and that's what we want. Let us go back to the function, and the last thing to do was we simply want to add the middle section, and that's what is happening in this function. Let us have a look at the next workout. So this workout is number 7, called as word count. Let me collapse my sidebar and let us see what's happening. So for this workout, what I want you to do is, for a given input of a string, I want you to convert that string into a dictionaries, where the keys would be the unique words inside the string and the values would be to the equal of number of their occurrences. So let me show you what I mean. Suppose the input is the sun and the moon, then I want you to convert this string into a dictionary which will look something like this. So here you can see that the keys are all the unique words inside the sentence. So we have the, then we have sun, and we have and, moon, and so on, and the values are the number of occurrences. So if you see this string, the is repeating twice. That's why here the value is 2. And I want you to do that for all of the words inside the sentence. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. Let me take it a little up. Let me define a function called as word count. This function will accept one parameter which I can call as sentence. The type would be string, and this is going to return a dictionary. And as you can see right over here on line number 26, the keys are the strings and the values are integer. So that's what I can say right over here. So this dictionary, the keys is for the string, the values are for my integer. Let me paste some documentation and let me get the spelling right. This has to be word count. Now let us see how we can define the logic. The first thing that I want to do is I want to split the sentence into a list of words. So let us do that first. So here I can say that my words would be my sentence dot split. But before I can split, I would like to convert my sentence into lowercase, because if you see, the first word is the with the T capital, and again we have the, but this time the T is the lowercase. And remember that strings in Python are case sensitive. So before we can split, first we would have to lower it and then we can split it. So before split, I can simply say that I want to first lower and then I would like to split. Now on the next line, let us create our dictionary. So here I can say that my dictionary of count is my dictionary, the key is a string, the value is an integer, and right now let us assign it a blank dictionary. Now what we can do is we can iterate through our list of words and then we can populate our dictionary. So what we can say is, for my word in my list of words, for each iteration we can use a very simple if and else blocks. So what we can say is, if my word is in my dictionary of count, that means that word is already existing, and if that word is existing, then I have to simply increment its value. So here I can say that from my dictionary of count, I want you to go to my key of word and I want to increment the value of 1. So I can say plus equal to and 1. Else, that means if the word is not existing in my dictionary, then I would like to create a new key and value pair. So here I can say that in my dictionary of count, let us create a new key for my word and assign it a value of 1. And at the last, I simply have to return my dictionary of count, and that's it. Let us go down and let us take some input. So here I can say that my sentence would be some input, and we can prompt the user for an input. So we can say enter a sentence, and then we can simply print out the output of our function word count, and let us pass sentence to it. Let us save it and let us try running it. So here it is asking me for an input. So I can say the sun and the moon, and here we have the output. The is occurring twice, sun is occurring once, and is occurring once, and moon is also once. Let us have a look at the next workout, and this is 08 character count. In the last workout we saw how to calculate the unique words. This time I want you to see and calculate the number of unique alphabets inside the sentence. And while doing this, I want you to ignore all of the spaces as well. So for example, if we have the same input such as the sun and the moon, then I want you to display a dictionary such as this, where the key would be for the unique alphabets and the values would be for the number of occurrences. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it, else we can do it together. So here I can define a function called as count characters. This accepts one argument which I can call as sentence. The type would be my string, and this returns a dictionary where the keys are my strings and the values are my integers. Let me put some documentation saying that this function counts the number of unique characters. Now let's see how we can define the logic for this one. The first thing that we need to do is we need to convert this string into a list. So let us do that right over here. So let me go down, and here I can say my list of characters is going to be my list from my string of sentence. And remember, we also need to lower our string. So let us do it right over here. Next, let us create our dictionary for count. So we can say count is my dictionary where the keys are again my strings and the values are my integer, and let us assign a blank dictionary for now. We can use our for loop to iterate and populate our dictionary. So what I can say is for my character in my list of characters. Now here let's see what kind of if and else blocks we can use. The first thing is I want to ignore all of the blank spaces. So I can say that if my character is equal to a blank space, then I simply want you to continue. I don't want you to do anything. So I can say continue right over here. Then I can say that if I have an existing character in my dictionary of count, then I simply have to increment the occurrence. So what I can say is from my dictionary of count, I want you to increment the value of my character by 1. Else, that means we don't have that key inside our dictionary, so we can create a new key and value pair. So what we can say is for my dictionary of count, the key would be my character and I would like to assign it a value of 1. And at the last, we simply have to return our dictionary. So we can say return count. The last thing to do is we simply have to accept a user input. So here I can say that my sentence would be my input, and again we can say enter a sentence and let us print out the value. So we can say I want to print out the output of my function count characters and let us pass the sentence to it. That's it. Just save a file and let me try running this file. So it's asking me for an input. Let me say the sun and the moon, and here we have the output. The next workout is odd and even. So let us see what we are supposed to do. So for a given input of a number, I want you to print out if that number is even or odd. So for example, if we have the input of 4, I would like you to display a message saying that 4 is even. Give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it right now. Let me define a function called as odd or even. This function accepts one argument called as number. The type is an integer. This function does not return anything. Let me write some documentation saying that this function checks if the number is odd or even. Here we can use our if and else blocks. So we can say that if my number, and here we can use the modulus operator. So we can say that my number modulus of 2 is equal to 0. Now what this operator does is it divides the number by 2 and gives back the remainder, and if the remainder is equal to 0, that means the number is even. In this case, we simply have to print out saying that the number is even, else the number is odd. So what we can do on the next line, we can say that else, and let me copy and paste this line from here. So I can say print my number is odd. Now let us ask the user for the input. So here I can say that my number is equal to my input, and I can say that enter any number. Now remember that the output of this function is a string, so we need to convert from the string to an integer. So what I need to do is I need to put a cast right over here, so I can write my int, and on the next line we can simply invoke our function. So we can say odd or even, and let us pass the value of the number. That's it. Just save and run the file. So it's asking me for an input, enter any number. Suppose I say as 4, I get the output as 4 is even. Let me try to run this file one more time. This time let me enter as 5, and we have the output 5 is odd. The next workout is number 10. And let's see what I want you to do in this workout. So this is all about reversing a number. So for a given input of an integer, I want you to reverse and print the digits. So for example, if the input is 1324, I want you to reverse and I want to get the output as 4231. Now for the sake of this exercise, please don't convert the numbers to a string and try if you can come up with a logic where you can convert the numbers as they are. Give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. But before writing the code, let us have a look how we can achieve this. So let me open up my browser and let us see how we can solve this problem. So this is for reversing the numbers, and suppose this is the number that we want to reverse. So what we can do is we can have another number called as reverse and set it to 0. Now let us see how we can start solving this problem. The first thing is, from this number we need the last digit of 4. Let us see how we can get the last digit. You can get the last digit by using our modulus operator. So when you do num mod of 10, you get the last digit. Then the next thing what we want to do is we want to take that digit and we want to use this formula. The first part of this formula is we want to multiply the current value inside reverse by 10, and then we want to add the digit back. For the next step, we want to take out 4 from our number, and we can do that by dividing the number by 10. But remember, we need to do a floor division because we need an integer value back. That's why I'm using double slash right over here. And we need to keep on repeating this till time number is not equal to 0. So what is going to happen is, for the first iteration, the number inside reverse is 0. For the next iteration, first thing that we do is we take out the last digit. That means we take out 4 and we take out by this operator called as modulus operator, and we multiply the number inside reverse by 10. For the first iteration, the number inside our reverse is 0. So what we have is 0 into 10 plus of 4, that gives us a 4. Now what happens is, for the next iteration, the number is 123 because we simply have to divide the number by 10. For the next iteration, it will again go back in this formula. So next time our number is just 123, and 123 mod of 10 gives us 3. That is what we have right over here. The next step is we want to multiply the current value inside reverse multiplied by 10. The current value we have inside reverse is 4. So 4 multiplied by 10 plus of 3 gives us a 43. Next time what happens is 4 into 10 we have 430, and our number is 12, so we get the digit of 2. So that is what we have right over here. And for the last iteration we have 4320 plus of 1, and hence we have our final answer. Now let us go back to our code editor and let us try and convert this logic into our code. So let me take it a little up. Here I can define my function called as reverse. We are going to accept one argument for an integer, and this also returns one integer. Here I can create one more variable called as reverse number and set it to 0. Now let us go back. So as you can see, we require a while loop, and we have to keep on looping till the time our number is not equal to 0. So going back, we have to say while my number is not equal to 0. Till then we first have to get the digit. So let us go back. The first thing is we want to get the last digit, and we are getting that digit by using our modulus operator. So inside our while loop we can say that our digit would be equal to our num mod of 10. The next thing we have to do is we have to simply say my reverse number is my reverse number multiplied by 10 plus of my digit. The next thing is we simply have to divide our number by 10. So remember, after adding, we have to divide and we have to get the remaining number back, and we are doing this by using our floor division. So let us go back, and here I can say that my number is equal to my number floor division of 10. We can also use our shorthand syntax. So what I can say right over here is, so this can be my floor division and equal to, and after this we simply have to return our reverse number. Now let us go down and let us ask the user for an input. So here I can say number is equal to input, then we can say enter any number, and remember we need to convert our input from a string to an integer. So we can use a cast and we can say integer, and at last I simply have to print out the output of our function of reverse, and let us pass the number to it. Let me save and let me run this file. So it is asking me for an input, so I can say 1 2 3 4, and here we have the output as 4 3 2 and 1. Let us have a look at the next workout. So this is your workout number 11, and let us see what we are supposed to do right over here. So for a given input of two lists n and m of equal length, I want you to add the corresponding elements together. So for example, if we have two lists like this, I want you to add 1 with 4, 2 with 5, 3 with 6 and so on, and so our sample output would be 5, 7, 9, 11 and 13. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us see how to do it together. The first thing that I want to do is I want to define a function called as add list, and our function is going to accept two different lists. So I can say my nums1, this is my list of integer. Similarly, I also have my nums2, this is also a list of my integers, and this function is going to give back us a list of our integers. Now let us see how we can define the logic. First, let me declare an empty list. So let us call our list as just nums. So this is going to be a list of integers, and let me assign a blank list for that one. Next, what I have to do is I simply have to iterate through both of the lists and append elements together. So let's see how we can do that. So I can say for I in the range, here we can say that we would like to loop till the length of either our nums1 or nums2. So I can say my length of my nums1, and for each iteration what I want to do is I want to append to my list of nums, and I want to append the addition of the first element from this list plus the first element from this list, and we can do that by writing like this. So we can say my nums1, the index of I, plus our nums of 2, index of I, and last we simply have to return our list. So we can say return our nums. Now let us go down and let us see how we can take the user input. So here I can say that my input 1 would be my input, and here I can say that enter the first list. Now what happens is taking this input becomes a little tricky, because the user is going to input and we are going to get that input as a string, but we have to convert that string into a list of integers. So first let me open up my IPython shell and then let me try and explain what's going to happen. So suppose we get the input like this, I is equal to 1, 2 and 3. So this is the kind of input we are going to get right over here. So on line number 43, when the user gives us an input, Python is going to take that input and it will give back a string which is something like this. The next thing that we have to do is we have to split the string and then we have to convert from string to integers. So let us see how we can do that. First we need to split. So we can say that my variable of I is equal to my I dot of split. Let us see the value of I. So as you can see, we have a list, but you can see the data type is still a string. The next thing that we want to do is we want to convert the data type from string to an integer. You can use for loops to iterate and convert the strings to an integer, but there is one more nice shortcut, and that method is by using a map function. Now map is an inbuilt function inside Python, and let us see how to use that. So here I can say my variable of n would be my map, and we want to map integer to our list of I, and let us see what happens. Let us print out the value of n. So as you can see over here, this actually returns an iterator. So the last thing that we have to do is we have to convert this iterator into a list. So let us see how we can do that. So here we can say that my variable n would be my list of my map of n. Now let us see the output, and here we have. So this time we have a list of integers. So what we can do is we can do all of these things in a single line. So suppose that my variable of I is equal to the string of 1 to 3. Then what we can do is we can say my variable of n is my list, and inside the list let us pass the map, and we want to map our integer to our I dot split. Let us print out n over here, and here we have the output as 1, 2 and 3. Let us use the same logic inside our program. So here on line number 44, we can create a new variable called as n, and we can say that I want to create a list for my map, and I want to map my integer along with my input1 dot split. Let us copy and paste this one more time for the second list. So let me take it down, and this becomes my input of 2, this becomes my variable of m, and this becomes my input of 2. The last thing is we simply have to print out the output. So we can say I want to print out the output of our function add list, and let us pass the list of n and m. Let us run this file. So it is asking me for the first list, so I can say 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and it is asking me for one more list. I think we have made a small typo. Instead of first, it should show as second. So let me exit. Let us go back to our code. So this has to be enter the second list. Let me save it, and let me try running this program one more time. So it is saying me enter the first list. So I can say 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. It is asking me for the second list. So I can say 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Make sure you always enter the equal number of elements. Now let us see the output, and here it is. We have the right output. So here we have 4 plus 1 5, 5 plus 2 is 7, 6 plus 3 is 9 and so on. Let's have a look at the next workout, and this workout is all about your list transformation. So let us see what you are supposed to do in this one. I want you to create a function that will take input of two lists n and m, and that function will also accept one more transformation function. Then what I want you to do is I want you to transform the elements from the list of n and m by using this transformation function. The list of functions are right over here. I want you to implement addition, subtraction, multiplication and double. Let me show you a sample input and output what I'm talking about. So for example, a given input of this to list, for the transformation of add, you should get this output. For the transformation of subtract, you should get this output. For multiplication, you have to get this one. and this one for the double. So what I've done, for your convenience, I've created a sample function called as transform. So you can see this function transform accepts two lists of integers and it also accepts one function. So for example, let me uncomment this. So for example, we pass the arguments of n and m to our function of transform, and suppose we create one more function of addition, then the output of this function should be exactly this. And you can see the transformation is for the addition. That means 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 7, 3 plus 6 is 9, and so on. So similar to this, I also want you to implement other functions which are mentioned right over here for subtract, multiply, and double. So give it a try on your own, or else we can do it together. And as a small hint, I would like you to check out my videos on higher order functions. If you don't have any idea about them, just go on YouTube and search for Octallium and higher order functions. So now give it a try on your own. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, we can do it together. First thing is, let us start with the typing definition. So here I can say my number 1 is my list of integers. Same for this one as well. This is also going to be my list of integers. Now function is of the type of callable. We will see how to define the types for the callable a little later on. Now this function of transform, this also returns a list of integers. Now let us see how to define the body of this function. So let me take that out. Let me take this out as well. The logic is very easy. So what I have to do is, the first thing, let us create a blank list. So I can say that my blank list of numbers, this is my list of integers, and let me give it a blank value. Next, we simply have to create a loop. So I can say that for I in my range of length of number 1, here you can choose your number 1 or number 2, it doesn't matter because both of the lists have the equal length. And for each iteration, I want to append to my nums list. Now here the transformation is very easy. I simply have to invoke my function which we have called as func, and we have to pass in the arguments. The first argument would be from our nums1, and the element would be at the index number of I. The next argument would be from our list of numbers 2, again the index number of I. And finally we just have to return, so I can say I want to return my nums. So till now this was just our first part. Let us see how we can define the transformer functions. So let me save and let me go a little down. Here what I can do is I can create a function for addition. So I can say define add. This accepts two arguments. So we can say x, the type would be an integer, y would be a type of an integer, and this returns an integer. And here the body would be very simple. We can simply say that I want to return my x plus of y. Now let us go to this line number 66. Let me put a comment right over here. Here what we are doing is we are simply invoking our function of transform, and we are passing three arguments. N and m are the list of our integers, and add is the newly created function. Now let us go back on line number 52 and let us add the typing for this function. So as you can see, our function of add, this accepts two arguments and it returns an integer. So here we can define the type as like this. So the first list would be for the arguments, and then is the return type. The return type is an integer, so I can write that over here. And the argument that it accepts are two arguments. The first is an integer, the second is an integer as well. So let me save my file. Now let us try running our file. And here we have the output. Let us check it once. So here you can see 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 7, 3 plus 6 is 9, and so on. Let us go back and let us see which other transformer functions we are supposed to create. So we have to create functions for subtract, multiply, and double. Let us go down and let us see how we can create all of those. What I can do is, instead of writing such a big function, I can create a lambda. So let me give you a small example of what can be a lambda. If I have to convert this function of add to a lambda, then I can simply say that add would be my lambda, which accepts two arguments of x and y, and it returns the addition of x plus y. So this is how our lambda would look like. You can also define the types right over here. So I just have to put a colon and let me copy the type from here. So add is a callable which accepts two integers and it returns another integer. So this is how our lambda would look like. Now let us try and replicate the same thing with subtract, multiply, and double. So let me copy and paste this a couple of times. Let me comment the first one because we already have one function for addition, and let us see what we can do right over here. The first one we can say as subtract, and here we simply have to say minus. The next one would be for multiply, and here this becomes multiply. The last one is for double. So here we can say that we want to add our x plus y and then we want to multiply it by 2 so that we have a double. Now let me copy and paste this a couple of times. We don't need this. Now let us pass our newly created functions. So here I can say this has to be my subtract, this can be our multiply, this can be our double. Let us save and let us try running this file for the last time. And here you can see that we have the right output. Let me take it a little up so that we can confirm. So we have already seen for addition. Let us see for subtraction. 1 minus 4 is minus 3. 2 minus 5 is again minus 3. 3 minus 6 is again minus 3, and so on. The next one was for multiply. So 1 multiplied by 4, we get a 4. Next was 2 multiplied by 5, so we get a 10, and so on. Let us see for double as well. So for double, what happens is 1 plus 4 we get a 5, and 5 multiplied by 2 we get a 10. That's what we have right over here. For the next one, we have 2 plus 5, that is 7. 7 multiplied by 2, so we have 14 right over here, and so on for the rest of the values as well. Let us have a look at the next workout. This workout is called as zip. So let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. So for this exercise, for an input of two lists, I simply want you to zip the elements together. So what I mean to say is, I want you to create a tuples inside our list. So suppose these are our list and this is the output. So here you can see the first element is a tuple and you can see the values are 1 and 4. The next elements are 2 and 5. So you can see we have 2 over here and 5 over here. Then we have 3 and 6, 4 and 7, and so on. For your reference, I have created this function and I have also provided a couple of lists. You can use this data or you can create your own logic. It's all up to you. Now remember that Python already has a zip function, but please don't use that. Try and make your own implementation. So give it a try, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. The first thing is, let us write the typing for this one. So this is going to be our list of integers, and this too is also going to be our list of integers. Now let us see the output. Let me take a little up. So you can see that output is also a list. So I can say this is a list. Then let us define the type of the elements. and you can see each of the element is a tuple. So here is our tuple. So inside this I can say that this is a list of my tuples, and for my tuple the first element is an integer, the second element is also an integer. So this is how we define the return type. Now let us go and let us write the body of our function. So let me take it out. Let me create a new variable called as nums. Let me copy this type. So our variable of nums is a list of the specific type, and let us assign it a blank value. Next, let us create our for loop. So we can say for I in the range of our length of my numbers of first, and for each iteration we want to append, and let's see what do we want to append. For each iteration we want to append a tuple. So let us create a tuple. So here we have the tuple. The first element would be from our list of numbers 1 and the index would be I. The second element would be from our numbers 2. Again the index would be I. And last we simply have to return our numbers. So we can say return our list of numbers. Let us go down and let us try to print out the values. So here I can say I can print out the output of my function called as zipper, and let us pass the values of n and m. Let me save this file and let me try to run this file. And here we have the output. Let me take this a little up. So here we can see we have the elements of 1 and 4. Here they are. The next elements are 2 and 5, 3 and 6, and so on. Let us go back. Let me show you the inbuilt function as well. So here I can say that I want to print, then I can say the inbuilt function of zip. Let me pass the values of n and m. Now this function of zip, this actually returns a generator, and if you read the documentation, they are using a cast of list to convert the zip function output into a list. So let us do the same. So let us put a cast around our zip. So here we can say that we want to collect the output of zip in a list. That's it. Let us save and let us try to run this file. And here we have the output as well. Let's have a look at the next workout, and this is your workout number 14. Let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. Now this is a very simple workout. I just want you to create a class called as contact, and I want you to have two instance variables. The first one should be name, the data type should be string, and the next one would be age with the data type of an integer. So for example, you can create a contact right over here, and you can provide the arguments of cc and 7, and when you print out your c1 you should get this output. So try it on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it right now. So let me take this a little up. The first thing is we want to create a class and name it as contact. The first thing inside the class is we need to define our init method. So here we can say define our init. The first argument is always the self. The next argument is name, the type is a string. The next argument is for the age, the type is an integer. This method does not return anything, so we can just write it returns none. And inside let us create our instance variables. So we can say that my self.name would be my name and my self.age would be my age. Next let us define the str method. So here we can say that define str. This always takes a self and returns a string. So inside of this let us create one string and we can return that string. So you can say I want to return, I can use my formatted string, and inside I can say my self.name, and then I can also write my self.age. Let us go down and let us create one instance of this class. So here I can say my first contact would be my contact, and we can say the name is CC and the age is 7. Let us also print out the contact. So I can say I want to print out my contact number 1. That's it. Just save your file and try running your file, and here we have the right output. Let us have a look at the next workout. So this is your workout number 15, and let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. In the last workout we just saw how to create a class, and this time what I want you to do is I want you to create a list which contains at least 4 instances of our contact class. Then I want you to sort the list, but I want you to sort the list with age, and I want you to print the list in ascending as well as in descending order. So for example, we have 4 contacts like this, and then we have a list which contains all of our contacts, and when you sort them ascending with their age, this should be the output, and when you sort them descending, this should be your output. So give it a try, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. First thing that I want to do is, let me just go back and let me copy this contact from here. So let me just copy this and paste it right over here. Let us also define the REPR method. So let me just copy and paste this, and let me just change this from str to our wrapper method. Next, let me take the data from here so I can copy all of these things. Let me go down and let me paste it right over here. So now what we have to do is we want to sort this list ascending and descending, but according to the age. So let's see how we can do that. Now what happens is, since contacts is a list, we have an inbuilt method of sort on the list. Let us see how we can work with that inbuilt function. So here I can say that my list of contacts, and I want to sort it, but this alone will not work. If you read the documentation, this method also accepts one more parameter which is called as key, and this key is actually a type of a function. And if you read the documentation, it says that a key function is given, then the items can be sorted according to their function values. So what this means is we have to tell this function of sort that we want to sort with the age. So let us see how to do that. Now since key is a type of a callable, let us create a lambda function, and we can pass that lambda function as the key. Let me show you how it works. So right over here I can create my lambda function. You can create a regular function as well, but I prefer creating a lambda function. Let me call that function as my sort function, and let us see how we can define this. So this is going to be a lambda function. Our function accepts a contact, and it simply returns the age of the contact. Now contact is a class, as you can see over here. We can simply return the age by writing I want to return my contact dot age. Let us also define the typing for this function. Let me take this a little up. So our sort function is of the type of callable, and the function accepts one parameter. The type of the parameter is a contact, and it returns the age. And if you remember, the type of age is an integer. So here what we can say is our function is going to return integer. Next, we simply have to pass this function as the key to our sort. So here we can say that we want to give a key, and the key is going to be our sort function. Next, let us just print out our contacts. Let me save the file and let me run the file. So here you can see that our contacts are sorted according to the age. Kiro, who is 4 years old, is the first, CC, who is 7, is the next, and so on. Now let us go back And let us see how we can also sort these contacts in a descending order. Luckily, it's very simple. Let me copy all of this. Now the method of sort accepts one more argument. If we read the documentation, there is one more argument called as reverse, and the type is a boolean. So let us give some arguments for reverse as well. So here we simply have to say that reverse is equal to true, and that's it. Let me save and let me run my file, and this time you see that we have the list which is sorted in descending order. Louis, who is 13, is the first, and Kiro, who is 4, is the last. Let us have a look at the next workout, and this is our workout number 16, and let us see what we are supposed to do in this workout. In this workout, I want you to create a class called as vector. This class should have one instance variable called as args, and I want you to create an instance of this class by accepting variable number of integers or float values. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to create a number of methods for our class. For example, addition. This method accepts another vector, it adds them together, and finally this method returns a new vector. The same thing happens with subtraction, multiplication, floor division, and so on. Let us go down, and here I have a couple of samples for you. So suppose v1 and v2 are different vectors. Then I want you to create operations for all of these print statements, and I want you to print out all of them. So give this workout a try, or else we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, we can do it together. The first thing is I want you to create a class called as vector, but this vector contains only one instance variable called as args, and we should be able to accept variable number of integers or float values. Let us see how to do this first. So let me go down. Here I can say I want to create a class called as vector, and let us define the init method. So this accepts self, and now since we have to accept variable number of arguments, we can use our syntax of packing and unpacking. So I can say star and args. Now if you are not familiar with packing and unpacking in Python, then I would suggest you to go to my YouTube channel and search for Octallium arguments and keyword arguments. Once you have a better understanding of packing and unpacking, then you can come back to this video. The next thing is we simply have to assign the value to our instance variable. So we can create an instance variable called as self.args, and let us assign the value of args right over here. Now this argument right over here, this by default is going to be packed inside a tuple, and we want to say that our tuple has to be either integer or float. So that we can say right over here by saying that this is going to be either an integer or a float. Now remember that our init method always returns none. Let us go down and let us see how we can define types right over here. Now this argument is going to be a tuple where it can be either integers or float, but we don't know how many arguments we are going to get. In that case, we can simply write that this is going to be a tuple, and here we can say that it can be either an integer or a float, and since we don't know the number of arguments, we can say that ... This stands for ellipsis operator, and this simply symbolizes that we are going to accept a variable number of arguments for our tuple. Let us go down and let us create our str method. So here we can say our str, this takes a self, this returns a string, and let us return string saying that this is our vector, and let us put our curly brackets, and here we can simply print out our arguments. Now let me go up and let me copy the vectors from here. So let me copy till here. We can take all of these things, go down right over here, paste it, let me save it, and let me try to run the file. And here we have the output. So this is our first vector. Let us go back and let us see what we are supposed to do next. Let me split my screen so that it is much more easier for us to see what's going to happen. Let me take this a little up. So what we have done is, till line number 31st, we are simply printing out our vector. The next thing is, we want to implement the method of length on our vector. So let us see how we can do that. Let me take this a little towards the right. Okay. Inside our class of vector, we can use the magic method which is called as length. So we can say dunder length dunder. Again, this takes the self and this one returns an integer. So what we can say is, we simply want to return the length of our arguments. So we can say self dot arguments. Now let me copy this line from here and let me paste it over here, and let us try to run our file. And here you can see that the length of our vector is 3. Now let us go back. The next thing is, let us see how to implement the Boolean operator on our class. So let me go inside my class and we can use the magic method of Boolean. So that is bool. This accepts a self and obviously this returns a Boolean value. Here we can simply say that if we don't have self.arguments, then we can simply return as false. Let me put my quotes. Then we have to return as false. That means we don't have a vector. But in case we have the arguments, then we can return true. Now let me go and let me copy these two statements from here and let us go right over here. Let me paste it and let us try to run the file. So here we have the output true and true. Let us go back. The next operator is for our addition. So let us see how to do that. So let me create a magic method right over here. Let me take this up. So the magic method for addition is obviously add. Now this accepts self and this also accepts another vector which we can call as other. This argument can be of any type, so we can just say that it can be any object, and this has to return back a vector. But before we can use this syntax, we need to go up and we need to import. We can say that from our future I want to import annotations. Now this syntax will work. Let us go back to our line. Here first let us do our standard check just to see if the other object is of the type of vector or not. So we can say that if not is instance other is of the type of vector, then in that case we have to simply return as not implemented. That means we don't know how to add the other object with our vector. But in case the other object is of the type of vector, then we need to do our addition operation. But before we can do our addition operation, let us try and think what's going to happen. Suppose we have these two vectors. We want to add -3 with 5, we want to add 4 with 6, and we want to add 7 with 7. You can use your for loop to do all of these things, but I wanted to show you list comprehensions. So let me open up my IPython shell and there I can demonstrate what I want to tell you. So this is my IPython shell. Suppose we have a list called as I and it has the values of 1, 2 and 3. Now what happens if I write something like this? I put my open and close square brackets and inside of this I say x for x in I and we get the exact list back. So this syntax that you can see right over here, this is called as list comprehensions. Now what we are doing is we are iterating through our list of I, and for each iteration we are taking that element in one variable which is called as x, and we are passing this x to our list which comes right over here, and that is why we have the output as 1, 2 and 3. Let us have some more examples with our list comprehensions. Now what happens if I say x for Instead of I say A, B and C. Let us see what happens. So this time we get the output as A, B and C. So what happens is, since ABC is of the type of iterable, we can use the for and in syntax. And for the first iteration, the value of X is A. So inside the list, the first value becomes A. For the second iteration, the value is B. So we have B as the next element and so on. Now let us see, instead of this string, what happens if you pass a tuple. So let me go back, and instead of ABC, I can just say 1, 2 and 3, and let us see the output. We again get back the list. So this is called as list comprehensions. Now in our case, we have two lists. Suppose the first list is N and the next list is M. And what we want to do is, we want to add the elements together. We want to add 1 with 4, then we want to add 2 with 5. So what we can do is, let us try and collect 1 and 4 inside a list, and for that we can use the inbuilt function of zip. So I can say that I simply want to zip my two lists together, and let's see the output. Now you can see that the output is of the type of a generator. We need to collect the output in a list or a tuple. Let us collect the output in a list. So we can say that zip N and M. So as you can see, this syntax is not going to work. What we need to do is, we need to use the list operator, and let us see the output of this one. So this time we get the output. So let us see what's happening. Zip is taking the first element from here, and it is taking the first element from the next list as well, and it is zipping it together in a tuple, which we can see right over here. The next element is 2 and 5, that we can see right over here, and so on. Now what we can do is, we can mix our list comprehension syntax with our zip iterator. Let me show you how it is to be done. Let me clear up everything. So this is our N, this is our M. Now let us see how we can combine list comprehensions along with our zip function. So what I can say is, X for X in my zip, and let us see the output of this one. So here we have a list. Now you can see that we can use our list comprehensions along with our zip, but we can do much better. We can also use our list unpacking right over here. You can see that each time we get a tuple back. So what we can do, we can unpack the tuple inside our list comprehensions. So what we can do is, we can unpack this tuple and we can do the addition at the same time inside our list comprehensions. Let me show you. Suppose I write X plus of Y for my X comma Y in my zip function, and let us see what output we are getting. And this time we are getting our desired output. If you see, the addition of 1 plus 4 is 5, and that is what we have right over here. The second time we have 2 and 5, so we have 7 right over here. So what is happening is, we are simply unpacking X and Y, and if you refer this step, this is our tuple. So for the first iteration, our X is 1 and Y is 4, and the value that we are collecting inside our list is X plus Y. That is why we have 5 over here. For the next iteration of X and Y, X is 2 and Y is 5. That's why we are getting 7 right over here. So as you can see, this is a very concise manner of adding two lists together. Now what we can do is, instead of just collecting in a list, we can also collect this inside another generator. So what we can do is, instead of the square brackets, I can write my round brackets, and let us see the output that we are going to get. So here you can see that we simply get a generator object back. What we can do is, we can simply create this generator, and we can use this generator to create an instance of our class of vector. You can easily unpack generators. Let me show you what I mean. So suppose we create this generator object and we assign it to a variable called as A. Now to unpack, we simply have to use our unpacking syntax. So I can say that in my list I want to unpack my object of A, and that's it. We have the answer of 5, 7 and 9. Let us go back to our class of vector and let us see how we can use this exact syntax. Let us go to our line number 89, and here we can create our generator object. So what we can say is we can put your round brackets, and inside we can say that x plus of y for my x comma y in my zip. And let us see what arguments we can pass to the zip function. Let me scroll a little down. So here it is. We simply have to pass the arguments to our zip function. So let me go down, and inside my zip function I simply have to pass self arguments and also the arguments of the other object. So we can say other dot arguments. We can assign this generator back to a variable. So we can say that variable can be my args. And finally, since we have to return back a new vector, let us create a new vector on the next line. So on line number 90, we can create a new vector, and we simply have to pass this arguments that we just created, and we can pass these arguments by using our unpacking syntax. So we can say that star and arguments, and that's it. We have a beautiful function in place. Let me save the file, and it looks like we have some small error. Let me see what is it. Missing return statement. Oh yes, so this has to be return and vector, and that's it. Let me copy the print statement. So let me just copy this and let me put it right over here. Let us save the file and let us try to run the file. And here we have the output. So this is our new vector, and the values are 2, 10 and 14. Let us check if the values are right or wrong. So let me take this a little up. So -3 plus of 5, we have the value of 2, which you can see right over here. The next is 4 and 6, so we have 10 over here, and so on. Now let us go back. Let us see what we are supposed to do next. So the next is for subtraction, multiplication, true division and floor division. So you can imagine doing all of these things is just a matter of copy and paste. So we can do it very easily. I just have to copy all of this. Let me paste it right over here. For subtraction, we can simply write this to be our subtraction, and this has to be minus. The next is for multiplication. So let me again copy and paste. Let me take this down. For multiplication, this has to be my multiplication, and here this also becomes my multiplication. The next one is for the division. Now this division is also called as true division because this division always gives back a float value, while the division that we have on line number 39, this is called as a floor division. This division always gives back an integer value. So let us see how we can implement these methods. Again, it's going to be super simple. I just have to copy this one, paste it down. The first one is our true division. So here I can simply say this is my true division, and this also has to be my true division. Let me copy this. Let me paste one more time. The next is our floor division. So I just have to rename from true to floor, and this also becomes my floor division. Let me copy and paste all of these statements and let us see the output till now. So let me copy, go back over here, let me paste all of this, let me save, and let me try to run the file. And here we have the output. So this one was for our addition, this one for our subtraction. The next one, let me see. Okay, so this one was for our multiplication, this one for our true division, and you can see for true division we have float values, and the last one was for our floor division. So you can see that we have integers instead of float values. Now let us go back. The next thing that we want to do is we want to implement these operators equal to, less than, greater than, and so on. So let us see how we can do all of these things. Let me go back right inside my class. Let us first see how to implement the equality operator. So let me just copy and paste all of this. Now since this is an equality operator, I have to rename this to E and Q. This always returns a boolean value. Then I don't need this line, so let me take it out. And let us see the logic for this one. Luckily the logic is very easy. We simply have to say that if my self.arguments are equal to my other.arguments, and that's it. Let me copy this line and let me paste it right over here, and let me save and let me try to run our file, and we get the output as true. Let us see if that is the case or not. So here you can see that our vector of v2 has the values of 5, 6 and 7, and that's what we are trying to compare. So if you see, the next vector is also 5, 6, 7, and that's why we get the output as true right over here. Now let us go back. The next method is for less than. Let us see how to do that. Let me copy all of these things. So let me copy, put it down. Let me go a little up. Now since this is our less than, we can call this as less than. Now let us see the logic for this one. We can use a very simple trick for this one. Python has an inbuilt function of sum. So what we can do is we can simply sum all of the elements together and then we can compare. So let's see how to do that. So let us take the sum of all of the arguments. So let me put this inside the inbuilt function of sum, and we have to do the same thing right over here. So this will also give us the sum of all of the elements, and since this is an less than operator, we simply have to check if the sum is less than the other sum or not. Now we don't have to implement one more method for greater than, because Python behind the scenes, it simply reverses the logic for less than, and then we can have greater than automatically. The next thing that we need to implement is this less than and equal to. So let us see how we can do that. Let me copy all of this and let me paste it down. Now since this is less than and equal to, we have to call this as L and E. The logic is again very simple. The less than operator becomes my less than or equal to. Let me copy and paste all of these things and let me paste it right over here. Let me save it and let me try to run the file. Now let us see what is happening. So here you can see that the output of my vector 1 less than vector 2 is true, that you can see right over here, and that is the fact. If you try to compare the values, you can see right over here. So we have -3 plus 4, which is 1, 1 plus 7 is 8, and for the second vector it is 5 plus 6, which is 11, 11 plus 7 is 18. So obviously our vector 1 is less than our vector 2, and that's why we have the output of true right over here. And you can also compare the output of all of the other print statements. So here you can see that we are simply flipping the values. So we get a false, then less than and equal to, we again get a true, and then we again get a false. Now let us go back and let us implement the last functionality, which is right over here. So let us see how we can implement the in operator. Fortunately, this is also very simple. Let me just go right over here. Let me define a function right over here. The magic function is called as contains. Again, this accepts a self, and this also accepts one other argument. We can call that argument as item. This simply returns a boolean value. Let us see the logic for this one. Here we can simply say that I want to return if my item is in my self dot arguments, and that's it. Let me copy this statement. Let us go down and let me paste it. Let us save the file and let us run the file for the last time. And here we have the output as false. Let us see what's happening. So we are checking if 4 is in my vector number 1 or not. Let us go up and see if that's the case. Here we have an integer, but if we have a look inside the print statement, we are passing a string. That is why we are getting the output as false. Let me copy and paste this one, and here we can say that 4 in my vector 1. Let me save it and let me try to run this file, and this time we get the output as true. This also concludes our section of workouts. The next section would be for our HackerRank problems, and I will see you over there. Welcome to a brand new section. In this section, we will solve a couple of problems from HackerRank. The first problem is called as swap case. So this is inside the folder 03 HackerRank, and this is the problem number 17. So let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. Let me collapse my sidebar. So in this one, I simply want you to swap the case of a string. For example, if you have an input like this, then I want you to swap the case of each and every character, and this should be your output. So if you see, the first W is capitalized, while over here it is in lowercase. The next W is lowercase, so this time it is capital, and so on. So this is one more example, and if you go down, I have a couple of more examples here as well. So if your input is like this, Python workouts with Octallium, then this should be your output. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. Let me open up this file called as 17 swapcase.py. Now you can use this function if you want, or you can write your own logic. Now since we already know how to work with list comprehensions, let us see how we can use the same concept to swap the case of our string. So let me open up my IPython shell and let us give it a try right over here. Suppose we write a very simple list comprehension saying that my x for my x in my string of ABC, then we get a list of our characters of A, B and C. So till now nothing is new to you, but what we can do is we can also incorporate our if and else blocks inside our list comprehensions. So let us give it a try and see how to work with it. Suppose whenever we get the lowercase a, at that time we would like to have an uppercase A. So let us see how we can do that by using our list comprehensions. So I can say I want capital A if my x is the lowercase a, else I want to have the element as it is for my x inside my string of A, B and C. Let me close my bracket and let us see what kind of output we are getting. So here you can see that we have an uppercase A. Let us try the same logic with B this time. So here I can say that if my x is equal to the lowercase b, at that time I want to insert the capital B. And here we have the output. You can see we have a capital B inside. Now what we can do is we can simply check if the string is lowercase or not. If the string is lowercase, then while putting the element inside our list, we simply want to capitalize it. Or if the string is already capital, then inside the else block, we would like to lowercase it. So let us see how we can work with it. So here I can say that I want to capitalize my string if my x is lower. Now remember, since x is a string element, we have the inbuilt method called as isLower to check if the element is in the lowercase or in the uppercase. Now this is true, else that means that our string is capitalized. In that case, we would simply like to lowercase it. So we can say that else we would like to lower our string in my string of ABC. Sorry, this has to be for x in my string of ABC. Now let us see the output, and here you can see that we get all of the strings in capital case. Let us do one more time. Here I can say suppose my A is capital, and here you can see that we get the right output. The last thing to do is we simply want to join all of these strings together. Now it's pretty easy. We simply have to wrap the entire block inside the string function called as join. So here I can say that I would simply like to join all of these things, and here we have the right output. So let us use the same logic inside our function. Let us go back right over here, and here we can simply say that I want to return and I want to join a string, and inside of this we can write our list comprehension. So here I can say that I want to capitalize my string if my string is lower is equal to true, else that means the string is in capital format. In that case we would like to lowercase it, so we can say that s dot lower, and here we can say for my string in my variable of my string, and that's it. Let me go down and let me print out the output of our newly created function. So I can say my swap case. Let me go back right over here and let me copy a line from here. So let me just copy and paste this. Let us go back, let me paste it right over here. I need to put some quotes because it is string, and let us try running this file, and here we have the output. As you can see, we have successfully swapped the case. Let us have a look at the next workout. This workout is 18 and this is for the runner-up score. Let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. So in this one, what we are supposed to do is we are simply required to find the runner-up score. And if you scroll a little down, for example, this would be our sample inputs. We are going to have a list of 5 elements and this is the list. Now inside the list, we want to find the runner-up score, and you can see that the runner-up score is 5. So try this problem on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us try to do it together. So this is my file. Before solving the problem, let me write a very simple algorithm. The first step would be we simply have to convert all of the values to integers, because remember our input function is going to return all of the values as strings, and we have already seen how to convert strings into a list of integers. So this step should be pretty easy. The second step would be we need to find all of the unique numbers, because if you go back you can see that we have a couple of repetitions. 2 participants can have the same score. So what we want to do is we want to have a unique set out of this list. So that would be our second step right over here. Third step would be we would need to sort our list, and after sorting it would be much easier to find out the second last element, and that's what we want to do in the last step. We simply want to return the second last element. So let us see how we can do this. So here I can say that my values would be my input. Next we want to convert this string into a list of numbers. So you are already familiar how to do it. So here I can say my nums, and I'm going to use the inbuilt function of map. I want to map my int to my values dot split. The next step is we want to have all of the unique numbers. Now we can get all of the unique numbers by converting this list into a set. So let us see how we can do that. Here I can create one more variable called as my unique numbers, and this is going to be my set of my numbers. The next thing is we would like to sort our list, but what happens is unique numbers is a set. Now set does not provide an inbuilt functionality of sort, but we can get that functionality if we can convert this set back to a list, and that is pretty easy. We simply have to convert this set back to a list. That's it. The step number 3 is to simply sort our list. So I can say that I want to sort our list. Now the last thing is we simply have to print out the second last element. So here I can say from my list of my unique numbers, I just want to get the second last element back, and that's it. Now let us try running this program. So here let me go back and let me copy this input. So let me copy this, let me go back, open up my terminal, and let me paste it right over here. And here we can see that the runner-up score is 5. Let us have a look at the next problem, and this problem is all about hash tuples. Now let us see what we are supposed to do in this one. So in this problem, for a given integer n and also space separated integers as input, I want you to create a tuple of t of those integers, and at the last I want you to compute the hash of the tuple and I want you to print it out. For example, this would be our sample input. The first input is for the number of elements that we want inside our tuple. On the second line, we are taking the input as 1 and 2. That means these two integers should go inside our tuple. And finally, I want you to have an output something like this. So give it a try on our own, else we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. Let me open up this file. Now what happens is hash is an inbuilt function in Python, and you can only create an hash of an immutable data type. And since tuples are immutable, we can create a hash out of our tuple. So let us see how to go about it. The first thing is we need to accept the input. So let me create a variable called as my nums, and remember this is going to be a string, so let me write as num string. So I can say this is going to be my input. The first thing this time that I want to do is I want to remove the spaces from the front and the back, and we can do that by using an inbuilt function called as strip. So here I can say that input dot I simply want to strip my input. So what's happening is the output of this function input is a string, and on string we have an inbuilt method which is called as strip. So if you hover over here, this method simply removes the leading and the trailing white spaces. And after we strip, we again want to split our string. So let me split it right over here. The next thing is we want to convert our num string into a tuple of our integers, and you already know how to do that. So let me create a new variable called as nums, and here I can say that I want to create a map, and I want to map my integers to my nums of string, and I want to collect the output. Now this time we want to collect the output inside a tuple. So here I can say that I want to collect my map inside a tuple. Now we simply have to calculate the hash value. So let me create a new variable called as hash value, and here we can use the inbuilt function of hash. So I can just say I want to hash my tuple, and my tuple is just my nums. Let me get the spelling right. This has to be hashed. Next, we simply have to print out our hashed values, and that's it. Let me run this file. So for example, we have a tuple like 1 and 5, and here is the output. Let us have a look at our last workout. Now this workout is all about your list. So here it is inside my HackerRank, and this is our problem number 20, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to create a program that can perform the following commands. For example, here is our insert command and print, remove, append, and so on. So what I mean to say is, if you just scroll a little down, the first thing that I want you to do is your program should read the value of n. Now what this n does is it is simply the number of commands that our program is going to accept. You can see in the example, we can initialize the lines of commands as 4. That means our program is going to accept 4 different commands. The first command would be like this, append 1. The next command could be append 2. The next one could be insert 3 and 1. And the last one could be print. And this is what I want you to do whenever we accept an input. So when we say that I want to simply append 1, that means I want you to append the integer of 1 to a list. Next, when I say I want you to append 2, that means I want you to append 2 to my existing list. So the new list would look something like this. The next thing is insert 3 and 1. That means I want you to insert the element or the integer of 3 at the first position inside our list. So this is going to be our new list, and here you can see that integer of 3 is the first element inside our list. And the last command is print. Now this command is simply going to print out our list as it is. So when we print, we are going to get an output like this. For each of these statements, I don't want to have an output. I want to see only the output whenever you give a command called as print. Now here are a couple of inputs and outputs that I would like you to consider. So for example, the number of commands would be 12, and these are the various commands that I want you to implement, and this is going to be the sample output. So for example, I have this program running in my background. Let me show you how this program has to perform. So here I can say that our program should accept 4 commands. So I write 4 over here. The first command would be insert. I want to insert as the first element, and that element should be 5. The next, I want to again insert at my position number 1, and this time I want to insert the element of 10. Now what happens is we have a new list, and inside this new list at the first position I want to insert 6. Remember, first we had 5 at the first position, but this time I want to have 6 as my first element. So again I'm going to write at the first position I simply want to insert 6. Now I would like to check out my new list, so I can just write print over here, and here we have the output. So I want you to implement this logic. So give it a try on your own, otherwise we can do it together. So I hope you were able to do it. If not, let us do it together. So this is my blank file, and let us see how we can work with this one. Now what we can do is, there are a couple of different ways of doing this. But the first thing is we want to split our input that you can see right over here. Now we want to split our input in 2 different parts. The first part would be for the command, and the second part would be for the arguments. So we can see every time we have the command in the start, and after that we have the arguments. So same thing as this one, insert is the command, 3 and 1 are the arguments. So for each input, we have to divide the input string into commands and arguments, and we have to keep on doing this till we accept all of the commands. For doing this, we can write a very simple for loop. So let me go back into my file of list. So here I can say that my n would be my input. So this input is for the number of commands. So I can just say input, and since this is going to give us a string, I can convert it to an integer. So I can say for my integer. The next thing is, since we want to accept n number of commands, we need to start a loop. So I can say that for my n in my range of my n number of commands. Now for each command, I would like to split my input into the command and the arguments. Now in this case, we are not going to use this variable, so I can just replace my variable of n with an underscore. The next thing is, let us go back to this one. So we can call this string as our operation. The first thing is we have to get this operation string, and then we can start splitting this operation string into command and arguments. So here we can go back and we can say that my variable of operation would be my input. So for n different commands, we have to accept n different inputs, right? So for each iteration, we want to accept one input, and remember the input would be a string like this. And what we can do is we can simply split the string right over here. So I can say that I would simply like to split the string right over here, and we can also write the types for this one. This is going to be our list of our strings. The next would be we have to divide this operation string into our command and arguments. Let us go to our IPython shell, and there we can see how to do it. So for example, we get an input something which is like this. So insert 0 and 5. So this is our operation string. Now we want to split the string, so we can just write split right over here. And if we check our variable of operation, this is going to be a list of our strings. The next is we simply have to get the command, and then we also have to get the arguments. So we can say that my command would simply be the first element inside my list of operations. So if you see the command, this is going to be our command is insert. The next is we want to get the arguments, but remember that these arguments are strings and we want to get these arguments as integers, but we already know that we can do this by using our map function. So let us see how we can do that. My arguments would be, here we can use our map function, so I simply want to map my integers, and this time remember that we want to start from our index number 1. So here I can say that for my list of my strings in my operation, I want to start from my index number 1 and I want to go all the way back, and that's it. And this time let us collect the output of map inside a tuple. I will explain why we need a tuple a little later in the video, but first let me show you. So let us collect the output of our map function inside a tuple. Let us see how our argument is looking like. So this is our arguments. So now we have all of the things inside the puzzle. This is our insert and this is our arguments. Now what happens is, there is another inbuilt function which is called as eval. Let me show you what I mean. Suppose we have a very simple print statement saying that I simply want to print out hello world. Now what we can do is we can use the eval function which can evaluate our Python expression. So let me copy this, and here I can say that I want to evaluate. Now remember, this evaluate is an inbuilt function, and inside this function I want to print out hello world, but this has to be put inside our quotes. That means the expression should be in the form of a string. And let us see the output that we are getting, and here you can see that we have the exact same output. Now what this eval function is doing is it is evaluating this string. So what we want to do is, for each iteration of n, we want to create a string like this, and after creating the string or the statement, we simply have to evaluate that statement. So let me clear up everything. This is our command and this is our arguments. So let us create a statement. So here I can say that I want to create a new variable called a statement, and here we can say that by using a formatted string that my list dot, and here I can say command followed by my arguments. Let us see the output of this one. So let us print out statement. So this output looks pretty familiar, right? So this could be our variable which is of the type of list, and on that list we want to perform this operation of insert, and this are the arguments. So let us see how we can do that. But first we need to create our list. So I can say that my variable of my list is going to be a blank list. Now let us try to use the eval statement and let us see if we can evaluate this statement or not. So here I can say that I want to simply evaluate my statement, and that's it. Let us try to print out my list and let us see what kind of output we are getting. And here you can see that the first element inside our list is 5. So what this eval function did was it actually ran this command and it inserted the value of 5 at index number 0. So this is what we want to do inside our for loops. So here I can say that my command would be my operation, and from my list I want to get the element at my 0th index. The next one is I simply want to get my arguments. Now this is going to be a tuple from my map of integers. Now remember, we want to start from the index number 1, so this has to be my index number 1. Next we want to construct our statement, but there is one more very subtle point that I want you to consider. So if we go back right over here, there is one command called as print. Now this print command does not have any arguments, so we need to handle this statement as well, but fortunately it's very easy. So let me go back to my program, and here I can say that if my command is simply just print, in that case I just want to print out our list. So I can say that my list. Now we don't have this variable, so let me go and let me create our list right over here. So here I can say that my variable of my list, this is going to be of my list of my integers, and let me assign it a blank list right over here. So in case the command is print, then we would simply like to print out our list as it is. Else we would like to create a statement. So here we can say that my variable of statement would be something like this for my formatted string. So my list is our list dot, the first is our command and the next is our arguments, and each time I simply want to evaluate the statement, so I can say that I want to evaluate my statement, and that's it. Let me save this file and let us try running this file. So let me go back to this one and let us take the inputs from this file. So here I can say that the first input is for 12 number of commands. Here I can say 12. The next one is insert 0 and 5. So let me do that. Next one is for insert 1 and 10. Let us do that. The next is for insert 0 and 6. Let us do that. The next one is for the print. Let us do that. And here we have the first output, that is 6, 5 and 10. Let us try and compare the output. So here you can see that the first output is 6, 5 and 10, and that's what we have in our terminal as well. Let us continue with our commands. So here we are. The next one is for remove of 6. So let me go down, let me paste it, remove 6, then we want to append 9, then we want to append 1, and then we want to sort, and then we again want to print out, and here we have the second output. So this is 1, 5, 9 and 10. Let us see the sample output. So yes, it is 1, 5, 9 and 10. So let us go back and let us try some more commands. The next one is for our pop. So let me paste pop over here. Next is for reverse, and the last one is for print, and let us see the output. So we have the output of 9, 5 and 1, and let us check. Yes, 9, 5 and 1. And you can see that after accepting 12 number of commands, our for loop is automatically stopping and we are exiting our program. We are at the end of one more amazing journey. We solved a couple of problems inside these workouts. Some of the workouts were very easy, some of the workouts were a little challenging, and I hope you had a lot of fun solving all of these workouts. Now remember, as always, my job is done, but your job is just getting started. The next thing is, you can continue to learn Python. There are multiple ways to progress. The first thing is, you can head over to HackerRank or some other similar websites where you can practice your Python skills. But if you really want to learn more about programming, then the next logical step would be to learn data structures and algorithms. Or if you're interested in making websites, then you can learn different web frameworks such as Django, Flask or Fast API. Or if you're interested in machine learning and AI, then obviously you can head right over there. But the first thing is to get your foundation right. So keep on practicing Python and happy coding. That's it from me. See you. Bye.